What do you think it would take to live a zero-waste lifestyle? It might not be as far-fetched as it sounds at first. Hey everyone, this is Jeff. Welcome into today's edition of Plain English, a podcast for English learners. We go a little slower than normal speed here, so learners of all levels can follow along and understand every word. If you'd like to read along as you listen, you can find a word-for-word transcript of this program at plainenglish.com/157. Coming up on today's episode, have you heard the term zero waste? There's a large community of people who are trying to cut down their personal waste as much as possible. And by that, I mean a trash bag or less per year. Do you think you could do it? That's our main topic today. I have a phrasal verb for you later on. That one is brush off, and it's Thursday, so we have JR's Song of the Week. It's actually part of the soundtrack to one of my favorite movies. There's no time to waste. Let's get going. Today's episode is inspired by a listener. Her name is Jana. She's originally from Sri Lanka, but now lives in Germany. She suggested I do an episode about the zero-waste lifestyle because, well, she's a zero-waste follower. We'll be hearing a little more from Jana later on in the episode, but let's start with the basics. What does a zero-waste lifestyle look like? How about reusable cutlery, mason jars, meal prep instead of takeout food, composting your food waste, shampoo bars instead of liquid soap, rags instead of paper towels, homemade toothpaste, reusable shopping bags, stainless steel coffee mugs, loose leaf tea, buying in bulk, metal safety razors, just to name a few. If you're tempted to say, "These people are crazy," just listen. You don't have to go all the way. I probably won't be going all the way, but we can all learn something. The zero-waste lifestyle has grown from a few eccentric adherents to a full-blown movement. The idea is to create as little garbage as possible. Some bloggers show their entire family's trash for a year in one single mason jar. Over the years, a large community of people have adopted tenets of the zero-waste lifestyle to reduce their garbage and lead richer lives. And that's really the promise. One of the early leaders in the movement is a blogger named B. Johnson, and she has a great TED Talk that I'll link to on the website. She says that by transitioning to zero waste, you can improve your health by eliminating toxins from your diet and your household. You can save money, and you can focus more on experiences and being together as a family. She's a social media star and has inspired a lot of zero-waste businesses to open around the world. And a lot of people are following her principles, which are, in this order, to refuse things that you don't need, to reduce your use of things that you do need, to swap out anything disposable for something that's reusable, to recycle only what's left, and to rot, to ask what can you compost, things like paper wrappers, food waste, stuff like that can all be composted. It's not just for internet activists and bloggers anymore either. Big companies are starting to pay attention to the consumer's demand for reusable packaging. Have you heard of Axe or Dove deodorant? Later this year, you'll be able to buy a package of either that can be refilled for 8 years. Do you like a glass of orange juice with your breakfast? Tropicana, America's best-selling fresh orange juice, will soon come in a reusable glass bottle. If you like OJ in the morning, you might have a sweet tooth. If that's the case, you can get your fix of Häagen-Dazs ice cream in a refillable jar. Tide detergent and Pantene shampoo will also be available in reusable containers. Increasingly, large grocery stores are providing more and more products in bulk, where consumers can fill up their own containers instead of taking products home in bulky packages. I was a little skeptical about how this would work in practice, so I asked Jana a couple of questions. The first thing I asked was, what was the hardest thing about transitioning to a zero-waste lifestyle? The answer is about what I expected. There are often not many good options for certain daily necessities that don't involve some type of consumer packaging waste. At the supermarket, sometimes even basic things come wrapped in plastic, so you have to find a place that uses less packaging. Then there are certain things that almost require it, like toothpaste. I've never in my life seen any type of toothpaste other than what comes in a plastic tube. You have to do your research, but you actually can find toothpaste that comes in recyclable materials. Some come as powders that you can mix at home, and Jana says she makes her own and uses a bamboo toothbrush instead of a plastic one. Speaking of that, I wanted to know what new habits Jana has now that she's been going zero waste. She said she buys loose-leaf tea instead of tea bags, brings her own mug to work instead of buying a paper cup, makes her own juice and smoothies, and packs her lunches to work. This is where some of those side benefits come in. You also get some higher quality food, a lower bill every month, and a little bit more of a personal touch in your diet. The next question I had for Jana was whether it's really possible to do this while living a modern lifestyle. I mean, so many people have to balance work and family that the extra effort of going zero waste can seem like too much. Jana works, she said, up to 7 days a week, so she knows that it's hard to strike that balance. But she says it's all about motivation. If you're motivated to finding creative solutions, then it doesn't feel like work to figure out how to go zero waste. And she also said something that I read over and over online. It's not a rule, obviously, that you have to do it all at once. When I was reading up on this topic, I remember thinking that if I did this, if I truly went zero waste, I would have to dramatically change my life. There would be so many things that would have to be different. It was intimidating, the amount of changes a person would have to make. And for that reason, I think a lot of people would brush it off. They just throw up their hands and say, well, I'm not about to make my own toothpaste, so I can't possibly go zero waste. I'll have another coffee to go, please. But as Jana reminded me, and as a lot of articles also say, it's not an all or nothing thing. You can just start with some of the more obvious things. Carry your own coffee mug or water bottle. Shift toward buying things in bulk rather than in individual containers. It's not zero waste, but if you buy one large container of something instead of 4 smaller ones, you're still cutting down on plastic. Make some of your own food instead of getting a takeout lunch. That's something I've done for a long time. It's better for you, more affordable, and reduces plastic waste. You can also find a lot of supermarket products loose and in bulk. Things like rice, beans. Wait, do we have any listeners in Brazil or Mexico? I said rice, beans, pasta, tea, coffee, flour, soap, chocolate, even pet food. You can go to a store and buy these things and put them in reusable jars instead of taking plastic bags. So who knows? After you take some of the first steps, you might find yourself going farther and farther toward a zero-waste lifestyle if you start to realize some of the benefits. And if you live in Germany, you might run into Jana filling up on loose-leaf Ceylon tea at your neighborhood market. This was a lot of fun to research. And listen, I'm not one to tell anyone what they should be doing, and I don't know whether zero waste is something for me or not. But I'll tell you, toothpaste, there are some things that just seem like a simple fact of life. Toothpaste comes in a plastic tube. That's just a fact of life, right? Like an unchanging fact of the universe. You just unthinkingly buy stuff in plastic that you don't really need to if you think about it. And that's the word that I'll keep fixating on, unthinkingly. So that's what I'm going to take away. Stop doing things unthinkingly, and who knows where it might lead. Now, I told you that one of the benefits of the zero waste lifestyle is a higher quality of life. They're not as focused on stuff as they are on being together and having a good time and good experiences. And I think that goes along with the idea of mindfulness and personal happiness. So I have an audiobook recommendation, and for that, we're going to turn to this episode's spiritual leader. They're spiritual in Sri Lanka, right? That would be Jana again. That's right. She got started on audiobooks with Audible and chose one called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Acker. I think I may have mentioned this one on the show a while back, that I was reading this book too. Proof positive that it's on Audible and one of your fellow listeners has gotten it as her free book. So thanks, Jana, for that recommendation. Also, Zero Waste Home by B. Johnson, the blogger I mentioned before. That's also on there if you're interested more about the zero waste lifestyle. So two book recommendations for you, The Happiness Advantage and Zero Waste Home. If you haven't gotten your free Audible audiobook, go to plainenglish.com/book, B-O-O-K, and sign up for your free trial today. In the last episode, I really had a hard time picking a phrase to review. And today, there are like 5 that I want to talk about. It's kind of like waiting for a bus. There isn't one for a long time, and then 3 come bunched up all together, right? It's a phrasal verb today, brush off. When you brush something off, you reject it. You dismiss it. And you don't reject it or dismiss it after giving it careful consideration either. You do it immediately, as if it were not important. Here's how you heard it the first time. A lot of people might hear about the zero waste lifestyle, buying secondhand clothes, making your own cleaning supplies, reducing your trash to a single jar for a whole year. They might hear that and think, there's no way I can do this, and just brush it off, just reject it as an instinct. I'm sure we can all think of a time when we've brushed something off that we really should have given more consideration to. When I was starting this podcast, the first piece of advice people give is just start. Just put something out there. And I brushed that off. I said, no, I need to get the website looking good. I need to figure out how to do the automatic translations. That took forever, by the way. I need to figure out how to edit the audio so it all sounds good. I need music. I need to sound like a professional. And it took far too long for me to actually produce the first episode. I should have followed their advice and just started and worried about polishing things up later. I regret brushing off that advice. I should have taken that advice and started sooner. You can brush a person off. We've all done that to others at some point, and we've all had it done to us. It's no fun when you're trying to get someone's attention at work, in your personal life, and they just brush you off. That's no fun to be dismissed like that. But there are times when it's appropriate to brush someone or something off. You know, I get a lot of messages from listeners. I love it. I treasure it. It really, you guys have no idea. It is such an inspiration. But once in a while, and I mean once in a very long while, I get a comment that is less than fully pleasant. Now, I must admit that there is a language barrier. So in some cases, the message didn't have any ill intent. It just seemed not so nice at first. But sometimes, and look, this has really only happened, I think, twice. Sometimes it was just a genuinely not nice comment. So what do? I brush it off. It's not important. I just dismiss it. It's not worth my time or my mental energy, and I instead think of all of the great and encouraging messages that JR and I get. Now, speaking of all of the messages that JR and I get, it's time for JR's Song of the Week. As you know, JR is the producer, and he has a new responsibility here at Plain English, and that is choosing one song in English out of the thousands of songs that are nominated every week. And after going through the volumes and volumes of submissions this week, he selected The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. If you haven't heard Simon and Garfunkel, I highly encourage you to check them out. Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel. They sang together as a duo in the 1960s and 1970s. The Sound of Silence is a very pretty song. It was nominated by Israel from Brasilia. He said it was the first song where he could understand what the singers were saying. It's a good one to start with, I think. They do sound very clear. It's kind of about people's inability to communicate with one another. JR says there's some applicability to today, too, when so many people can post on social media, but they still have trouble really communicating. So thanks, Israel. Thanks, JR. If you would like to nominate a song for next week, please send an email to JR. His email address is jr@plainenglish.com. Oh, and one more thing about this. I know we're going a little long today, but the soundtrack of one of my favorite movies is by Simon and Garfunkel, and it includes The Sound of Silence. That movie is called The Graduate, and it came out in 1967. The song plays during the opening credits and kind of sets the theme for the rest of the movie. Okay, that's all for today. If you enjoy the show, there are a couple of ways to get in touch with us. One is by WhatsApp. Feel free to send me a message, introduce yourself. The WhatsApp number is +1 312 967 8757. And if you'd like to go the email route, sign up for our email list and you'll get a special welcome message from me and we can correspond that way. To get on the email list, just go to plainenglish.com/mail, MAIL. Thanks again, Jana, for your inspiration, Israel for your song, JR for being a great producer. Happy belated birthday too, and all of you for being the best audience in the world. See you right back here on Monday. If you enjoy listening to Plain English, then I'd like you to consider joining Plain English Plus. With video lessons, faster audio, flashcards, and online courses, it's the best way to take your English to the next level. Visit plainenglish.com/plus to read all about it.